Well, good morning, everyone. It is sure good to see you here. You know, for the last 2 months, I've been coming in here every Sunday, suiting up and preaching to an empty church and to a camera. But today, I get to preach to you. Even though you're wearing masks, it is good to see you here. You know, since we entered the COVID-19 lockdown in March, so much has changed. 130,000 Americans have died of COVID-19 since then. And we're all wearing masks. Some people have lost their jobs. The DC football team may finally change its name. Change is happening. Lots of change. Even the way we celebrate Mass is changing. And our country is changing dramatically as we wake up to racism and the injustices and violence that our African American brothers and sisters face every day. And these changes are challenging our country, and they're challenging to us personally. We struggle to discern what is the truth, what is just, what does need to change, and what doesn't need to change. Now, some of these changes are inconvenient. Wearing a mask is just inconvenient. But others involve a real letting go. And still others involve loss. And as this has happened, as these changes have come to the surface, they've evoked fear and sadness, sorrow and uncertainty. And the question is, where do we go? Where do we go as a country? Where do we go personally to handle these changes, to negotiate and navigate them? Well, I want to suggest to you that today's gospel, from chapter 11 of Matthew's gospel and Paul's letter to the Romans, reminds us that while there is so much that is changing, there is something at the heart of our Christian life that remains the same. While change is happening all around us, at the center of our parish life and our personal spiritual lives is something that does not change. Deep within us, there remains something that is consistent and real and true. And I want to suggest to you that we have to face these changes that are happening in our society from within the deep heart of the Christian life. So what is it that I'm talking about? What doesn't change that's deep within our Christian life? Well, listen to the gospel today and what Jesus says. Jesus says to us, "Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Come to me," he says. "Take up my yoke and learn from me, for my heart is gentle and humble. You will find the rest you deeply need." It is the risen Jesus, my friends, who is always with us, especially during times of change. No matter what you're going through, no matter your burdens, your loss, the stress you feel, the fear you feel, he is with you. So right now, I want you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine the risen Lord standing before you with his arms outstretched. He smiles at you and nods, beckoning you to come to him. Go ahead, take a step towards him. Move towards him. Let him embrace you. Put your head on his chest. Feel your burdens go away. Now open your eyes, because it gets better. St. Paul in chapter 8 of Romans reminds us of something else that always remains, that we can live from during times of change. Listen to Paul. He reminds us, you are in the Spirit. The Spirit of God dwells in you. The Spirit of the one who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he says. And the God who has raised Jesus from the dead will give you life through his Spirit that dwells in you. At the heart of our Christian life, deep within our parish and our worldwide church, is the sweet presence of the Spirit and the risen Jesus. Deeper than any fear or worry or burden, we find the all-encompassing presence of the Spirit and the beautiful, attractive presence of the risen Jesus, who keeps saying, come to me, come to me. It is the presence of Christ and the power of the Spirit that we must cooperate with during these times of change. Because in fact, it is the Lord who is changing our world by driving out the forces of violence and racism. It is the Lord who is calling us to be a country of justice and peace and to stand for the most vulnerable. It is the Lord who is bringing about peaceful change. So when we stand in his welcoming presence, when we think and pray and act from the Spirit of God, we will be able to navigate life's many changes. We will be able to see where justice and truth and peace must grow, because it's from Christ and the Spirit that true wisdom comes. And as we tap into this, we will find as a church that we will have the courage to stand up for the new life that Christ is trying to bring about